Alrighty, what is going on, guys? So we're doing a solo pod for today. I've got the new intro up. Let me know what you think of the intro. We've probably got 6 or 7 topics to cover. Yes, no campaign, me dabbling in religion, 10,000 calorie challenge, some sports, Russell brand stuff, etc. But we're going to roll straight into the yes, no campaign. So the news put out a couple of weeks ago that their yes, no campaign was going to start ramping up their media, but not everyone was going to get the yes or no campaign letter. So I haven't got the yes campaign letter just yet. I've gotten the no. The no one came out early last week. I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm only going to go over the no stuff. If the yes stuff's there and if it's good, I'm happy to change my mind. I'm leaning towards one way, but if I can have my mind changed legitimately, I'm all for it. So I'm assuming most people got the no campaign letter. We're going to go over it quickly. It's basically a 10 reasons to say no at the referendum. But like I said, if a yes campaign letter comes in tomorrow, I'll read it, and if it changes my mind, it changes my mind. I'm not ignorant to the fact of my mind is made up just yet. I'm leaning towards no, but if I can get some yes information that changes it, I'm going to change my mind. So we'll go over this quickly. Reason 1, the voice is legally risky. The High Court will determine its powers. It risks legal challenges. Number 2, there are no details, which is pretty clear. The PM comes on the news every now and again and basically reiterates some garbage that doesn't make any sense. It's not about treaty. It's not about treaty yet. We've seen you wearing a treaty T-shirt, and it's not about reparations, but that would be included in the next step if this does go through. So the government won't provide key details until after the referendum, which is always weird. Number 3, it divides us. That's just a fact, because one group of people will be getting things that another group won't be getting based on race. And that's just a fact. A constitutional body for one group means permanently dividing Australians. Number 4, it won't help Indigenous Australians. So I don't know this completely. I don't know if that's a pretty bold statement. I think it will obviously help some Indigenous Australians, but it's saying more bureaucracy is not the answer. I agree with that, but I don't necessarily agree with it won't help Indigenous Australians. I'm sure it will help some. I don't think it will help all of them, but I don't think it won't help them. Number 5, no issue is beyond its scope. So the voice is to all areas of executive government, which means no issue is off limits. I mean, that to me means, well, okay, we're purely about the voice for Indigenous people, but now we're going to start talking about things about climate change, or we're going to start having our fingers in over here and over here. It's like, no, this was what you were brought in for. Now you're trying to get into this and this and that. So I can see that point of view. Number 6, it risks delays and dysfunction. The risk of legal appeals and delays means a risk of dysfunctional government. Number 7, it opens the door for activists. I mean, we're already seeing that now with the yes-no protests. Some voice supporters say this is a first step to reparations and compensation and other radical changes, that's just how the Uluru Statement from the Fall is. It has the 3 steps: voice, treaty, and truth. And the second step is treaty. And treaty also generally means reparations, meaning you've got to financially compensate a group of people. That's just what it means. I mean, generally, it's a percentage of a nation's GDP, which is an astronomical shitload of money when you're talking about an entire nation's money. Number 8, it will be costly and bureaucratic. The National Indigenous Australians Agency, which is comprised of just over 1,400 staff, already gets $4.3 billion in funding. So this is one of my main things. So if you're already getting $4.3 billion in funding, I guess it's like any charity. If what you're giving or what you're getting isn't enough, either A, you're not doing enough with the money you're getting, or B, show me why you need more. If what you're saying is legitimate, sure, I'm gonna wish you handing more money over. But who's getting the money? Is 80% of it going to these 1,400 people and groups? And is it 20% going to the people who actually need it? Because I'm not down with that. That's not how it works. This, number 9, this voice will be permanent. Once it's in the Constitution, it won't be undone. Fair, but it's one of those things. If you're going to make a change, it needs to be right. Whether I think this is right or not is irrelevant, but if it's in there, it's in there. Number 10, there are better ways forward. Constitutional recognition can be achieved without tying it to a risky, unknown, and permanent voice. Sure, there are better ways forward. I don't think either side has given a list of ways forward that I think that I can agree with, which doesn't mean, I'm right or wrong. Typically, it's just throw money at the issue, throw money at the issue, throw money at the issue, like anything. But that obviously doesn't work. I said before, I think if we're going to these rural and disadvantaged groups, that things like how we live in, suburbia, that we have an abundance of, then maybe we need to go and build things there rather than just give money, because all you're doing is just putting a band-aid over things. I don't see why we can't go and build schools or community centres or hospitals or these things that will be lasting, rather than giving, hey, here's a handout, here's a handout. Well, that doesn't work. It's just a band-aid. So I think there are better ways forward. I don't think either side has come up with 5 good steps forward, 10, 15, however many. I haven't really heard anything. I've heard one group say we need to do this because of this. I've heard one group say we can't do it because of this. But I haven't heard either one say that I think these better steps are instead of this. But like I said, I haven't got the yes one yet. If that comes out, and like I said, if it changes my mind, I'm happy to change my mind. I'm not ignorant to the pose of like, no, I don't like it, so because of this. I'm not for it because of the reasons that I've got from the information I found. But if I find yes information, I am happy to have my mind changed. So if it comes out, I'm happy to cover that too. Also, with me in the last few weeks, one of my good mates is, I wouldn't say quite religious, but religious. And we always have a bit of back and forth about, because I'm a very matter-of-fact person. I believe in things that I can see with my own eyes and touch with my hands and hear with my ears. So religion is quite a difficult concept for me to grasp, because the concept of faith is basically to deter from all, sight, touch, all those kinds of things. You're supposed to believe in something that you can't see, you can't hear out loud, and touch. So my ability to do that has been quite hard. But I was like, you know what? A few weeks ago, I was like, you know what? That's quite an ignorant and closed-minded way to look at things. So I'm going to spend the next 12 months, not so much going down a rabbit hole, but reading up on it as much as I can. I went out and bought a Quran a few weeks ago, and it's probably one of the slowest reading books I've ever read, purely because how it's worded, and you've basically got to read a paragraph, think about it, and basically break it down, learn that, and then move on to the next. It's quite interesting what I've read so far. It's basically a guide from what I've read so far about how to be a good person, which, the average person would or should be doing the things that they're talking about. But for me, I'm just like, you know what? If Homeboy Upstairs is real, I want to find out. And whether I can find out through these books, or I'm going to read the Quran, and then I'm going to go in the King James Bible and read that, because I looked up how many different religions there are, and there are like dozens of different types of religion. And I'm like, well, I feel like Christianity and Islam faith are the two main. So I'm going to go with the Quran first, read that, go down that path, and then see what I gather. And then I'm going to read the King James Bible and go down that path, and then see where we go. But no churches have been gone to, none of that has yet. Just more me reading a book and trying to break down what I'm gathering from each one, and we'll see where it comes out of at the end of 12 months. My main thing, not so much against religion, because you can believe in what you want to believe in. I'm all for it. But it just seems like a big case of Chinese whispers from thousands of years ago. And it's like an evolving story. If you gave me a story 1,000 years ago, it's going to change a little bit over the course of that time, that each person that I tell, because the other person is going to relay it in their way. So that's how I feel like there's all these different books. It's the most rewritten book in history. But it's like, how can you rewrite it the same way every second time? That's why, things like science, like I heard Ricky Gervais say, they were arguing the concept of religion versus science. And his argument was, if all the science books in the world were destroyed, in 1,000 years' time, they would all come back the exact same way, because all the same tests would have to be done to prove the same thing. Whereas religion, it's stories. I can read this, and then 10 people can read it, and it might not be relayed the same. So And also too, my ability to get my hands on a King James Bible is ridiculous. You can't get them in bookstores for whatever reason. You can only order them online. But when I went and looked down, because the friend I'm talking about recommended the King James Bible, I was like, you know what? I'll have a crack. I'll read that one first. But then, like I said, being able to get one is just insanely hard. But then I was like, okay, why is it called the King James Bible? Which it started when I started researching it. I'm like, all right, there's a couple red flags I'm picking up. So it's called the King James Bible, and it was named after the King James in the early 1600s, which again is a bit of a red flag straight away. You named a book after yourself, which makes me think a few things. And then you look into it. So there's a guy named Richard Bancroft, the Archbishop of Canterbury, was noted for having the role of overseer of the project, which basically means he's a modern day editor of a collection of short stories. But back then, that's what it was called. The actual translating of the King James Bible was done by a committee of 47 scholars and clergymen over the course of many years. Second red flag, that so many people were involved in translating this book. How did not one of them maybe make a mistake or put something in there that didn't need to be put in there? So in 1604, soon after the King James coronation as King of England, a conference was held by churchmen requesting that the English Bible to be revised because existing translations were corrupt and not answerable to the truth of the original. So basically they've got a book here that these people now don't like and don't think it's to the truth of the original one, so they're going to revise it in their way. Red flag number 3. So do your own research with this too. Like if all this turns out to be wrong, let me know. But that was my third red flag. I'm like, this book's been, revised over 400 years ago because they didn't like the original, and they're going to name it after the king that told them to do so. So it's kind of like, is homeboy King James going to be like, well, I've got this book, I don't really like a third of it, so I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to put the stuff in that I think about it. So that's been my whole thing about it since the beginning. Again, if, Team Jesus, and if the world comes to end and homeboy comes down and said, well, you didn't believe in me, so you're not coming upstairs, I'm going to look real silly. But I don't want to pretend to believe in something just for the sake of, if the world goes tits up, let me on the boat. I won't pretend this time. I feel like that's not a legitimate reason to believe in it or not. But what I'm doing is I'm just trying to stay as open-minded as I can to the topic and to what I'm reading. Like I said, that Quran book is probably the slowest read. It will probably take me a good month or two to get through it, but which will give me enough time to order the King James Bible. I don't know if there's two different, if they're conflicting, or because the Quran so far doesn't say this is the only religion so far. It references God quite a few times, which obviously King James will obviously, I'm assuming, talk about Jesus and God and all that kind of stuff. But so far, what I'm reading of the Quran, it's how to be a good person, look after yourself. It's talking about fasting and, don't hurt people, don't cheat on your wife. Some weird stuff in there too. Respectfully, if you and your wife divorce and separate, you cannot get back together with them until she remarries and then separates from that person. So you've got to let your wife or your ex-wife remarry, be with someone, hope that goes to shit, and then you can get back with her. That is weird, but each their own. It also talks about, again, this is fairly normal, but to read in a book was a bit weird, to not sleep with your wife when she's on her menstrual cycle because she's deemed as unclean, and the blood needs to flow through her body. And if you don't want to hear this, cut this next 30 seconds out. But basically, she's cleansing herself and she needs to be left alone while she does it. And I'm just like, what is going on here? But again, that's probably the weirdest thing so far. But it's interesting in terms of the stuff that is applicable into today. So that's why I'm kind of like, this book isn't actually bad. It's just a really long read. So there's a quote, which I know we're talking about religion, which some people will probably find super boring, but there's a quote that I've really liked so far, and it's, such are they who buy the life of this world at the price of the life to come. So it's kind of like what I'm talking about religion. I don't want to buy into it because I think it's going to go tits up and I'm just going to pretend to, be on the home team. It's kind of like, no, I need to be all in legitimately. And then we go from there. So we're off that. We're off the religion talk for a while. Sad news, any, pit bull lovers out there, myself included, I have a pit bull cross staffy. The UK is looking at, or not is looking at, is going to be banning extra large bully breeds. This has been a topic that's, gone from country to country. They're looking at banning the breed. It's purebred pit bulls are banned here in this country, or in this state, sorry, because of the attacks and stuff like that. And the reasoning they're talking about in the UK, the PM, whatever his name is, I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. Rishi, that's his first name, is looking at banning the breed because of they feel like they have aggressive DNA, which you can argue the fact that, sure, they might have aggressive DNA, but every human being has aggressive DNA. That's like me saying all shit kids should be banned. It's like, well, no, if you raise a kid shitty, he's going to be a shitty person. So are we going to ban adults? We're going to ban parents? No. Bigger fines for the owner of the dog, jail terms, and that's it. You're talking about banning an animal because of shitty owners. It's mental. I'm telling you now, there is no way that would fly in this country or this state. Good luck coming for me and my dog. There would be a new John Wick movie made if anyone did anything to my dog. So the idea of this happening in another country because of some shitty owners. And look, I know when I'm playing with, when I'm play wrestling with my dog, he could wreck me at any point in time just because he is so strong, but I've not raised him like that. He's a good dog. He's a beautiful dog. And these people who raise them to be aggressive, of course it's going to happen, but they should be punished, not everyone else. Pit bulls are the most loyal dogs. They're beautiful. You should never ever ban an animal. That's mental. But again, you punish the vast majority of people because of a few shitty eggs. It's ridiculous. So I don't think that will ever cross the pond and translate to here, but I'm not real big on protesting all that kind of thing. I kind of like to stay in my four walls, but that is one thing. There's no way I'd sit at home, cop that. No chance. Less sad, but more shitty, the Russel brand allegations that have come up in the last few days, which stem back from early 2000s. We're looking at 15, 20 years ago, which is, come at me if you want, but I always find it interesting when these allegations come up from 15, 20 years ago. And you kind of I've never had anything horrible happen to me like that, or not that I would ever talk about anything like that on here, but the idea of something happening to me and then me just sitting on it for 10, 15 years, again, because the reverse argument could be, I couldn't talk about it until now. Fair. I'm not going to sit here and say that, you're wrong, and yes, you could have. You could have easily talked about it. But it's just very interesting that these things always come up when someone starts to make a name for themselves. And Russell Brand has obviously always been in the media for quite some time, but he's really started to take off in the last few years, having his own YouTube channel and stuff like that, which has now been demonetized permanently. He cannot make any money at all from his YouTube. He can still upload, but he cannot make any money until this is all sorted out, which these cases take months and years to however long. Generally, they settle, but I also think if you do settle, you kind of look guilty, regardless of if you're not guilty or not. I think you should just fight. I think there should also be jail terms for people who falsely accuse people. If I've said it before, say a rape charge is 10 years and you falsely accuse me, you're doing 5 or more. You should not be able to falsely accuse someone because it wrecks your reputation for life. And everyone knows Russell Brand was a wild man, but I think he's obviously denied the allegations. But it's four women, 4 accusers. So the accusations of rape, sexual assault, and emotional abuse. I don't know if emotional abuse is a crime. Correct me if I'm wrong. It could be. I'm not sure. From 4 accusers. The accusations from the early 2000s, which Brand was still prominent in the mainstream media throughout TV shows, movies, newspapers, and his comedic career. Now, the women have stated that they only felt ready to speak after being approached by reporters, which is funny. Reporters have come to these women and said, oh, are you ready to talk about this? Oh, actually, now that you've mentioned it, yeah, I am. Suspect. So they've been approached by reporters, and some citing Brand's newfound prominence as an online wellness influencer as a factor in their ability to speak out, which is actually, that's a quote. So they felt seeing him as an influencer or a wellness coach, they felt like they needed to come out now, not 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. He's also been married in between all those. I haven't heard Katy Perry say he was emotionally abusive or, sexually abusive or anything, like any that kind of stuff. Jimmy Fallon come out and said, oh, I should have really, there's a clip of him and this Miss McAfee woman, and he's sort of groping her and trying to be funny. And she was like, no, I didn't feel uncomfortable. Jimmy Fallon comes out and he's like, oh yeah, she seemed pretty uncomfortable. I should have done something. But you've got the woman who was actually involved stating, you know what, I wasn't uncomfortable at all. So let's move on. I just always find it interesting when these women come out of nowhere and you don't see, again, it's going to sound horrible, there are legitimate scumbags out there, like your Bill Cosbys and your Weinsteins that do horrible things. But it's just interesting when these prominent men, like your Russell Brands, Andrew Tates, and all of a sudden these women come out of nowhere. And you can't even see these women with Russell Brand. They're all blacked out and their voices are like muffled and they're behind things because they don't want to be seen. It's like, well, if you're accusing someone of a horrible crime, you should be seen. I want to see you speak. I want to see if I can get a gauge on if you're being legitimate, and I want to see if you're emotional while you speak. And if I'm listening to you and watching, all I think is this person's full of shit or this person's telling the truth, but I want to see it. I don't feel like you should be hidden behind this cloak. I don't know. That's just how I feel. But some people probably want to remain anonymous, which I feel like if you're going to accuse someone of a crime, you need to put yourself out there. So Brand has only stated that amidst the litany of astonishing, rather baroque accusations, some very serious allegations, this is absolutely untrue and I refute them. Obviously, he's going to say that. Now, this could all be true. This could all be true. But there's a thing, there's an old saying, you're guilty until proven innocent. Well, you're innocent until proven guilty. But at this day and age, you're guilty first. It's like, well, hang on, what happened to due process? And it's just gone out the window. So, like I said, he's been demonetized now and you cannot make zero money. Obviously, he has money. He's done quite well for himself. But his ability to make more money has been completely shut down, which I guess is a loss for him, but it's a win for platforms like Rumble, which he can go to and basically leave YouTube and jump ship. Obviously, he's not going to make as much money from YouTube because YouTube is the number one platform, but you got to do what you're going to do. So moving on, we've got a new outbreak. We are on to a new outbreak. I don't think it's going to be COVID level, but we've got a listeria breakout in Queensland and a few other states. So 3 states, Queensland, Victoria, and New South Wales. 9 current cases have been diagnosed across the 3 states. I think Queensland has the most. I think we're at 5 or 4 across so far. Listeria is an old thing. It's been around for a while. Generally, you're okay. It's just going to make you, generally, if you're pregnant and you're elderly, you're kind of up shit's creek. But for everyone else in the population, you're generally safe. So what is listeria? It's generally a foodborne bacteria illness, and it can come from contaminated foods, including processed meats and soft cheeses. Now, if you're pregnant, like I said, and over the age of 65, with a bit of a sketchy immune system, you're in a bit of trouble. But like I said, if you're everyone else, you're generally going to be okay. You're just going to shit yourself a little bit. But yeah, I don't think this is going to be, hopefully, anything too crazy. But it's just weird that these things are coming out from Canada here. Just another thing to come out. It's like, come on, man. Channel 7 has released a story, kind of, about these 2, what do they call them? Media influencers, or they've been on a TV show. Now, I'm stating this before I get into who I think it is. Do your own research, but I think if you spend 5 minutes looking into it, you'll know who it is. My view, I'll get into what they've been accused of first. Accused of, they will be charged. So 2 Channel 7 personalities who haven't been named, and again, they've been blacked out. They're facing charges, have been accused of some pretty horrible stuff. The 52-year-old woman, 8 counts of rape, 1 sexual assault, 17 indecent treatment of children under 16, 2 charges of torture, 4 allegations of occasioning bodily harm, 2 of these armed and in company, and 2 common assaults. So she's been busy. And the 49-year-old man charged with 7 counts of assault, which is weird to have one person do all of that and then dude number 2 or person number 2 has just assaulted 7 people. I feel like it's got to be way more because that's just a weird difference. If you look at these 2 people, she looks a bit of a nutcase. So, like I said, you go do your own research. But it's looking like these 2 people from My Kitchen Rules. I've never watched the show. It's not really my kind of thing. But you look at when these 2 people, how old they are from the show, 52 and 49. There were 2 people on the show, 52 and 49. And they would be Claudine and Anthony from My Kitchen Rules. And you look at their ages, then they've been charged in court, similar days, similar times. It's a bit sketchy. But I don't know why we can't name them. I don't know why. Most people, you do your own research, it's pretty blatant. But we're hiding these 2 sick individuals. There's been no issue before of showing people who have been just accused of things. People have been accused of rape and sexual assault in the past. All over the news, all over the paper, they've just been accused. Whereas these people there's been charges laid and we can't put their faces on the screens. It makes no sense to me. Moving completely different to where we're going in terms of a financial sector and moving slowly closer and closer to a digital currency. So Macquarie Bank, obviously not as big as, your ANZs, NAB, and obviously Commonwealth Bank, which I think is probably the biggest. They are scrapping cash by November of 2024 as they begin to phase out cash, which, as I'm reading it, sounds mental. You're getting rid of cash. Cash and checks and phone payments as it moves to digital-only payments by November of next year. Customers will no longer be able to write or deposit checks, deposit or withdraw cash over the counter, or make super contributions with a check. Me being ignorant, I didn't even know you could do that. From March next year, though, your bank's telephone banking system will go silent, which is a big one, especially if you're elderly. And as May, you will not be able to withdraw or make deposits from their branches. So basically, if you're in a rural area where banks aren't on every corner like they are here, they're everywhere. So if you're in a rural area with poor reception or no bank close, you're pretty much screwed. Especially if you're elderly. Elderly people go into things all the time. They don't do phones. I used to work for a telco company and we'd have elderly people just have like a prehistoric, like the first phone ever. And they'd be like, I just need to get some credit. I'm like, credit is not even a thing anymore. What are we talking about here? They had a 3G phone. I'm like, but that's just, for me, I guess if I was that age, I'm pretty technologically ignorant and I'm pretty basic. So I guess that would be me if I was that old. But these people are going to be screwed. They have no idea what digital currency is and they're not going to have any help because they're old. People don't make time for them. So one bank is making the move to a digital currency, which means my assumption would be that a second, third, fourth is soon to come. I don't think, if it was me with a bank, which it would never obviously be, I kind of would go, well, maybe I would like to be one of or the only bank that still handles in cash, because you're just going to have all these customers move. This is how my mind works. If I was a Macquarie Bank customer, I would go, okay, I'm moving banks to St. George, Commonwealth, whatever, these banks that still deal in cash. and then say hypothetically all the banks close except Commonwealth Bank. Get rid of cash instead of Commonwealth Bank. I would assume minimum 10% of each of these banks' customers are going to move to a bank that still deals with cash, because people don't want to have everything online. They just don't. I don't. I've got multiple accounts. I've got cash home. Probably shouldn't be saying that, but it's not all just held in one physical spot, which I think is, obviously I don't hide my money under the bed, but I don't think holding all my money in one possible spot, because things are so easily hacked and taken. I mean, I had my bank card stolen a few weeks ago, and that was a nightmare. But it's just people who can hack things so easily, and having everything, my Commonwealth Bank app, we're doing works every week or two. There's we're just doing whatever you want to call it, road works or whatever it's called for a bank from the hours of 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. But if all I can now do is digital currency, and if I want to transfer something at midnight, but I can't access my money because you've only given me one way to do it and you've shut the access off from those hours, it makes no sense. But this is the direction we're going, unfortunately. So again, I think it's probably going to be moving in that direction. I think a few more banks are going to follow suit. If this was me and I was a big bank, I'd be like, hey, look, let's probably not do that. Let's try and get some customers from each of these banks and grow. If you're getting 10% of customers from each, 3, 4, 5 more banks, you're growing your business by 50%. That's a lot of new customers, especially when you're getting a transaction fee from each, transaction. You're getting a cut from everything. That's a lot of people. But I would kind of hope 1 or 2 banks still do it, still deal with cash, because you're going to screw a lot of businesses. Everyone knows. I mean, you go to a sushi place and randomly the FPOS machine doesn't work, and we only deal with cash now. We're not silly, but I'll happily do it. I was a sole trader for a while. You deal with cash here and there because I don't want the government involved in all my shit. And that's just how it is. A lot of people don't, a lot of people have their own businesses, deal with cash here and there. They don't want to have everything on the books, right or wrong. But you don't need to know everything with us. Leave us alone to some capacity. You don't tell us everything. There's so much dodgy shit that goes on with the government. We don't push too far. We want to know some things, but you got to leave us alone too. Like, let's just back off with the having access to all my shit. Let's just calm down. Now, we're almost there. Where are we? Now, one thing we are going to be doing, we did last weekend, we are going to be going for a 10,000 calorie food challenge. We did it last weekend, or by we I mean myself, Christian, and Laidlaw, and he had some footage, Laidlaw had footage, I had some footage, and it was kind of a pain in the ass to get everyone's footage together and put up a video. So it was super fun. It was actually really easy to get 10,000 calories in for me personally. Laidlaw is like a 6'3" weapon and would just literally sleep, rise from the dead, smash a few thousand calories, go back to sleep, rise up, do the same thing, and he's a weapon. Christian, I've known for years and has always hated eating food, but it was quite funny watching him just turn into a child. It was quite funny. Love you though, it was funny. So I'm going to do it again this weekend. So I've put up a little NGL questionnaire thing for me to go over some questions and stuff while I'm doing it, because I'm going to go from midnight to lunchtime, give myself a 12-hour cutoff to get 10,000 calories in. And I think it's going to be pretty cruisy. I think the first meal I'm going to eat is a pizza, some garlic bread stuff, some brownies, go to sleep for a couple more hours, wake up, 8 croissants, 8 sausages, cheese, go train, come back, Hungry Jacks, chill out for a little bit, donuts, and that should be it. 10,000 calories done by midday, with the intention of doing it in a few weeks, because when I did it, I only gained like 1 kilo, but I burnt that off. And then doing a 15,000 calorie and then a 20,000 calorie. We're going to see how we go with that. But if you watch this, send in some questions for me to go over from Saturday, just for me to fill in some time. I'll keep putting up a link to because you can send them anonymously, so I don't know what they are, if you want to ask some sketchy stuff. Or just throw me a DM, comment on the video, send through Instagram, whatever. I opened one mistakenly, and it was like, we should talk more. And I'm like, I have no idea who you are. But if you watch this and you ask that question, maybe you should DM me. But that's it for today. The next video will be the 10,000 calorie challenge, but it'll be on the second channel. I've got a second channel up now. I want to keep these separate so that I feel like it would dilute the two, having these kinds of conversations and with guests and other things going on, and then having challenges, food challenges, fitness challenges. It kind of just makes it look like I'm just filming for the sake of filming. I kind of have like having the idea of having two separate channels. But that is it. Thank you guys. And also, if there anything that I've talked about isn't 100% accurate, DM me, because like I said, I'm not ignorant. Learning is good. You know, I look at being wrong as learning rather than I'm wrong. Damn, it's like, all right, cool, I'm wrong. Let's learn. So yeah, thanks guys.